Welcome to the session. Topic of this session is steps in policy formulation process. You are well aware that agriculture policy formulation is a complex task, involve different types of people, different actors, there are different stakeholders, and we need to have a number of studies, we need to collect different types of data, we need to create the policy creator networks so that they can work in a harmonious way, they can evolve a new policy decisions which can which will be impacting the large number of the people. So so very good formulation policy, good for policy formulation will require a very good policy formulation process. So basically in this talks we are going to discuss, we are going to learn about the steps in the policy formulation process, how the policy is formulated particularly in the agriculture sector. So we will learning different steps. Then also we will learn about what are the features of the good policy formulation, what are the steps we should involve, what are the different characteristics are there for good agriculture policy formulation process. So let us begin with understanding the agriculture policy formulation steps, and in the initial steps we need to take the decisions whether there is a need to form a new agriculture policy or new policy, or there is a need to amend the existing policy. So first decision is taken by the policy maker whether there is a need to form altogether new policies, or on whether there is a need to amend the particular clause or few clause of the existing policy. So this decision is taken in the initial stage, and after identification of this taking the decision about the policy about the new or amendment, then we need to decide, we need to prepare the statement of the problem, the policy goal, objectives and methodologies of policy formulation process. So after deciding whether there is a need to form an altogether new policy, then we prepare a statement of the problem, what is the actual problem in the ground level. There is unemployment, there is a low income of the farmers. So we need to prepare the statement of the problem, then policy goal and objectives, then we have to decide about the methodology of the policy formulation process. Then the main policy formulator, we can say agriculture ministry in case of agriculture, they decide on the involvement of other actors and stakeholders. So and who will be participating in the policy making process. So sometimes their involvement also may be differ. Sometimes there is a simple information sharing, or sometimes outright collaborations to conduct the studies, or only simply getting some information about the production, the consumption pattern, the prices, or the actual problem in the farm. So there may be different level of involvement of different stakeholders, and the main the policy formulator, they appoint a committee of the politicians or bureaucrats or professional experts to form a policy. So this is also very much required while formulating the policy. So main actors and the main policy formulator, where they decide the level of the participants as well as they identify the persons who going to participate in the policy formulation process. Then actually the main formulator, the agriculture policy, or in case of agriculture policy, the Minister of Agriculture is the main policy formulator. So they identify the working groups, and these working groups basically they identify the major issues. So their role is to evaluate the existing policies, and they recommend the various policy options to the government. So working groups, they play the major role in the policy formulation process, and their main focus is to produce a draft document on the policy. So working groups basically they prepare the draft policy document based on the input, based on the different studies, based on the consensus among the different stakeholders. They prepare the draft policy. So these are the different steps which are required in the policy formulation process. First is the setting the policy agenda. Here we identify the issues, this is done by the core committee. And then second step is the articulation of the vision statement, setting policy goal, the setting policy objectives, developing time schedules and preparing the draft policy document. These are the different steps in the policy formulation process. And the first step is to decide on the policy agenda or policy issues. Here actually we identify the actual problems to the participants or at the farmers level, at the consumers level, at the non-farm sector level, what is the actual problem. So we identify here is the problem, and so what is the problem on which policy action is required. So in the policy agenda, actually the first step is to identify the policy agenda, and this is done by the core committee or core groups. So here ministers of the concerned ministry, secretary or any other official or experts, they can head this, they can be the chairperson of the core groups, and they also invite members from the interest groups, different types of groups, communities, and the farmers groups, the researchers, the academicians, and the non-government organizations. So we may have members from the different interest groups in the core committee, and then actually these members should be aware about the contemporary issues, the problems and constraints facing in the agriculture sector. So actually they should be well aware about the contemporary issues, the problems, the constraints. All these people are selected as a member of the core group by the main formulator, we can say Ministry of Agriculture in case of agriculture policy. And here we need to have a strong interface between the agriculture policy and policy related to the water, trade, energy, environment and forestry. So here when we formulate the agriculture policy, we need to also consider about the policies of the related sectors like water, trade, energy, environment, forestry, or maybe other also. And this core committee actually, while formulating the policy agenda, they should be broad minded, and they should also think about, they should also think beyond the agriculture sector, because in agriculture policy is affected by the different policies. Suppose we want to create a policy for providing the irrigation, so we need to also consult about the concern from the the Ministry of Water Resources. So that's why they should be broad minded, they should consult with the different related departments, ministries or sectors for formulating agriculture policy. Then second step is the preparing a vision statement, and we must prepare, or we must articulate a clear vision of the policies and issues and manners. So actually what we are going to achieve, and in what way we will be achieving, there should be clear visions, they should visualize the real positions, real current situations, and then they have the clear vision on the inter-sector linkages, different sectors, and then they also have clear vision on the sustainability and natural resource management, institutional change required, what are the institutions which will be requiring to formulate to implement the policy. So all these things should be very clear, it should be prepared well, and the mission statement should capture the value or principles that will guide the rest of the process. How will we implementing the policies, whether we will be providing the support to the the farmers in a very harmonious way, or whether we will be implementing some legislative actions like restricting utilization of water for a particular crop or particular situation. So it clearly mentions about the values and principles which will be followed in the policy implementations later on. Then the policy goal is another important steps. Identification of policy goal is very important or significant steps in formulating a policy. Policy goal are basically high level objectives, and they are seldom fully attained. These are the very big, like we can say we want to improve the agriculture situation in the country, So these are the broad goal, and for achieving this broad goal, we create or we identify some specific objective, but here it reflects the intention of the policy actions. So there should be a sign that program is moving towards achieving the goal. So and basically goals are prepared for the long term times, we can say for the next 10 years or 15 years. So they are the broad statement about the policy achievements or long term. So the strategic objectives and programs are designed to achieve this broad goal, the long term goals, and these goals basically help the policy maker to clearly identify the policy issues and formulate the policy in an efficient and effective manner. Then identification of policy objectives, actually these policy objectives directly flow from the policy issues and goal, and in case of agriculture we may have different agriculture policy goal objectives like food security, we can say the livelihood income security of the small and marginal farmer, the conservation and protection of natural resource and environment, utilization of untapped potential of soil and water resources, diversification of farm economy, development of human resources for increasing productivities, access of women to land, credit, education and information. So basically objectives are very specific target, or we can say they are the measurable statement which we want to achieve when we implement the policy in the ground level. So suppose here the objective is to provide the access of women to land, credit, education and information. So here we are targeting the women. So we want to provide the access to a particular section of the society, that is women. So here we have a clear and specific objectives which we want to achieve out of the policy action, and these policy objectives are identified with consultation with the various stakeholders, the various actors who participate in the policy making process. Then we have to prepare the time schedules. This is also very much important, and it is very necessary to prepare a time schedule for all the activities involved in the policy making process. We have to decide the date, we have to finalize the date of report submission by the working groups, then date by which discussion paper will be prepared and circulated, date by which the draft policy document will be prepared, the date of the workshops that will be organized by the working groups or the ministries to consult from the to head views or opinion of the different state departments. We clearly need to identify, we need to clearly define the time schedule of the different activity. We have to also decide the date by which finalized proposal for approval by the competent authority, when this proposal will be submitted to the competent authority for final approval. So we need to decide all these dates so that we can prepare the policy in a time bound manner. So there should be no delay. That's why we need to prepare the time schedule for the policy formulation process. Then the last step is the preparation of the draft policy document, and this is very significant activities, and it is prepared on the basis of an approved policy concept. When when you identify the policy issues, policy agenda and policy objectives, then we start the developing the draft policy document. And actually in the preparing the draft policy document, the legislative experts at the ministry level, they draft a legal version of the draft policy document with the help of the appointed experts. So here legal people, they help in drafting a legal version of the policy draft which are suggested by the discussion the working group. So here we prepare the legal version of the policy, and this draft again is widely discussed and debated with the stakeholders, and after the discussion and debate, revised draft put up to the cabinet meeting, and this when the cabinet meeting approve the the policy draft, it goes to the parliament or the legislative assembly for discussion and debate, and if they approve the policy, and then it will go for the implementation at the field levels. So here we can discuss about the steps involved in the formulation of the draft policy document. Actually the core policy making group, which is constituted by the ministry. So here Minister of the Agriculture or secretary, they may become the head of that core group, and they identify the members of that core policy making group, and they appoint the working groups, and the role of working group is to review the existing sector policy and legislation. Then they conduct the studies on various policy related issues and give recommendations. And then actually a separate working group for different subsectors can be formed, such as the for livestock sector, the biotechnology sector, horticulture sectors, agroforestry sector, because agriculture is the integration of different subsectors. So we may have separate working group for each subsectors. So working group can be formulated for different subsectors. Then these working groups basically they suggest the amendment in the existing legislation, or they identify the areas where legislative gaps are there, and they also suggest the way to fill the gap in the existing legislation, or they propose the new policy to achieve the policy goals, or to remove the or to solve the problem at the grassroots level. Then actually this working group, they prepare the discussion paper based on their sector studies, and they propose the policy directions, and then this discussion paper is actually circulated among the different actors and stakeholders for their comments and suggestions, and based on this suggestion and comment from the different actors and stakeholders, again the draft, the discussion paper is revised, and this again discussed in the workshops, different types of workshop like national or regional or local level workshop can be organized. Then actually the purpose is to have wider consultation with the civil society, the target group beneficiaries, the Panchayat Raj institution who will be implementing the we can say the agriculture policy, and public representative from the different groups like from the traders, from the farmers, the self-help groups also sometimes. So we can have a wider consultation with them, and then again the workshop with the participants of the state level ministers, the other state functionaries and stakeholders, because agriculture is the state subject. So that's why we need to have workshop. The central government need to have the workshop with the state level ministries, departments or other state functionaries to have their opinion about the proposed new policy direction. Then we can organize the interministerial meeting for the wider acceptability, because agriculture policy is also linked with the environmental policy, the water policy, the finance, the rural ministry. So interministerial meeting should be organized to have wider acceptability among the different ministries. Then public response is obtained about the policy direction of proposed new policies, and draft policy documents are discussed at the national workshop and the professional workshop from the experts of the field, like if there is a new policies related to the seed sector, so we need to have the opinion of the plant breeders, the private companies who are going to produce the seed, they are going to distribute the seed to the farmers, even the farmer also. So then interministerial meetings shall also be organized, and then necessary revisions need to be incorporated in the proposed policy document. And again there is a need to have a circulation of the revised draft among the different concerned ministries and departments and consultative groups, and then after incorporation of all the comments and observations, this revised draft is submitted to the concerned ministry, and if concerned ministry approve the policy draft, it goes to the cabinet meeting for their discussion on the proposal, and they also suggest sometime some change in the policy document, and when they approve this policy document, it goes to the parliament or legislative assembly for the discussion, for debate, and if they approve the parliament approve the policies, or the legislative assembly they approve the policy proposal, it is adopted for the implementations. And when the policy proposal is adopted by the parliament or legislative assembly, it goes for the publication in the official gazette, and for implementation the concerned ministry initiate the institutional and administrative actions which are required to operationalize the policy, and so they will form the guidelines for operation, and they formulate the strategies, plans, programs and project for implementation at the ground level. And these are some characteristics of the good policy formulation, and the policy formulation process should be the participatory. Actually, it should involve all the actors and stakeholders who are participating in the policies. We need to have opinions, comments, observations, suggestions from the different actors and stakeholders of the policies, and we should invite the policy process should invite the feedback on the policy issues from the representative farm groups like farmers group, the traders, the agribusiness companies, workers, the consumers. So we need to have feedback from the different representative groups. Then we need to also ensure the vigorous debate prior to the policy making. So there should be complete vigorous debate about the policy decisions, and then the actors and stakeholders should have access to the latest data and information. So we need to provide the latest data about the production, about the consumption level, the consumption pattern, the prices, the trend in the international market, the availability to the marketable surplus with the farmers, the price trend. So the availability of subsidies, and the use of the input by the farmers. So we need to provide the complete information to the farmers, and then public opinion through the seminars, workshop and brainstorming sessions are invited, so that there should be complete participation from the all stakeholders and all actors in the policy making process. And in the issues which are related to policies, some of the issues are which have the policy overlaps. Suppose we want to develop a policy for the rural development or non-farm sector development, so there may be policy from the Ministry of Rural Development also, and there may be policy from the Agriculture Ministry also. Sometimes policy overlaps are also there. So we need to identify this policy overlap, and we need to analyze them, and then only we should prepare the new policy based on the consultation with the other ministries and department. And this process should be the continuous, the policy making process should be the continuous, iterative and interactive process. Even after the policy have been framed, there should be continuous interaction among the different stakeholders, actors. They can always suggest some changes based on the contemporary issues, based on the changing situations. So it should be the continuous process, and interaction between the policy makers, policy delivery personnel and stakeholder is very much required. Actually, while making the policy maker should interact with the policy delivery personnel at the ground level, at the grassroots level, from the extension functionary, from the input distributors companies, traders or agribusiness companies, so that there should be a complete view from the all stakeholders, and actually they are going to implement at the farmers field level. So there should be a complete interaction between the different stakeholders like policy maker, policy delivery personnel and stakeholders, and produce policy that can be implemented effectively and successfully. We should frame only those policy which can be implemented at the field level. Otherwise, there is no need to frame the policy which are not implemented at the ground level. So we should frame only that policy which can be implemented effectively and successfully. Now we can sum up this session, like policy formulation process comprises different steps, like starting from the setting of the policy agenda, articulation of policy vision, then setting of policy goals and objectives, and preparation of the time schedule. Then we move to the preparation of the draft policy, which is basically prepared based on the approved policy concept by the core committee, and then core committee frame, identify or constitute different working groups, and then this working group basically they prepare the draft of the policy document, and we have the legislative experts at the ministry levels or other experts. They draw the legal version of the draft policy document, and then this draft policy document is widely discussed and debated among the peoples, among the stakeholders, and the revised draft is put up to the cabinet meeting for their approval and discussion, and after approval from the cabinet meeting, it is placed before the parliament, if it is a central policy or central government policy, or it is placed in the and the legislative assembly if the policy is being framed by the state government, and if the parliament or legislative assembly they approve the policy documents, it goes for approval for its implementation, and then the policy documents go for go in the official gazette, and the government then frame the different programs, the projects and plan to implement the policy. They frame the guidelines so that there should be no confusion among the policy implementers. So this is the way to frame the agriculture policy. With this, I thank you all. Thank you very much.